Live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a long time. It's been since Wednesday, since we have graced this great show. Yes, Benjamin. See, Ben even says, Dad, at Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. It's been a long time. But this is the Saturday morning edition of AYS. We got a lot to get into. We will get into that. Got a lot to cover. If it's your first time joining AYS, we greatly appreciate it. Do us a favor by hitting the like and share to some Facebook groups, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Twitter. This morning we're going to be talking about Coach Paul Mainieri, obviously retiring. Look, we've talked about this, about the crick in his neck and the not really the crick, but just the pain that he had, the twitch that he had. The man's been in a lot of pain. Look, we have we'll get to that because that's where I'm going to start off first. Who will LSU replace as their next head baseball coach? A lot of talk is that LSU already has their replacement. That is not completely the case. Nothing is set in stone. We will talk about that. 247 Sports. I'm very tempted to start off with this one, and I might even do that. 247 Sports. I know a lot of you have seen this, called LSU a one-hit wonder. And some people have been asking me, Blake, why do you continue to go after the national media about LSU? Well, that's why. So Ruffino's Rants this morning is going to be lit like a Christmas tree because we're going to tee off on 247 Sports and the bullshit that they continue to push out. Believe that. I'm sick of it. All right, so there will I'm already getting lit like a Christmas tree. Eric Gilbert. We'll talk about that. We got a lot to get into, and LSU softball loses a heartbreaker. And we'll get to all your comments. This morning, before the show even started, Brian said good morning on YouTube. Ryan Thibodeau says good morning. And also hashtag Ask Blake, man, I knew something wasn't right with Paul. I can sympathize with him since I have a bulging disc in my neck and back. Yeah, I mean, look, pain is pain, man. And you got to give him credit for sticking it out. And look, the season's not over yet. And Craig Schilling says, and we are live. All right, so let's do this. Let's pay some bills very quickly around this thing. We'll get to all your comments, and we'll get to the show. Guys, I know I've been seeing a whole bunch of text, emails, phone calls, and DMs from our friends over at BetOnline. Everybody's been loving BetOnline, the online sports gambling site. So, guys, go over there and check them right now. Guys, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get all your sports action, all the mobile sports betting. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, odds, and updates. It's the best way for you to place all of your bets, and the best thing is it's free to sign up. Head on over to the website, betonline.ag. That's betonline.ag. Use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. When you do that, tell him your good friend, Mr. Blake Ruffino at AYS, sent you on by. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. All right. Let's see here. Let's get to a couple of comments. Danny says, let's go, Blake. Good morning, sir. Robert Plaisant says, good morning, AYS. Good morning. Ryan Thibodeau says, I am still incarcerated on Facebook 6 more days, though. My man, you're more incarcerated than any human being that I know. More than any human being that I know. All right, before we get to the comments, I got to say this. Look, the last couple of seasons for LSU baseball have been tough from a fan perspective. They've been tough from a player perspective, and they've certainly been tough from a coaching perspective. I know that a lot of fans were upset and wanted Paul Mainieri to move on, and that he will. But I think that we need to come to a realization of how good Paul Mainieri was in his tenure. Guys, he is a first-ballot Hall of Fame coach. Let's get that understood. Only 5 coaches, and Skip Bergman talked about this yesterday, 5 coaches, only 5 have 1,500 total wins and a national championship. Only 3 of those 5 have 1,500 wins and got to 2 national titles. Got to 2. So, I mean, look, he's won a lot of baseball games. They've had a lot of success. They've had a lot of downfalls. But certainly LSU has had much more success than they have failures. Much more success than they've had failures. I really want to thank Paul for everything that he's done. He's given us a lot of wins, guys, a lot of wins. This is obviously something that he did not want to do. He doesn't want to quit coaching. And I think that we all know, and look, I'm getting from people who watch other shows and cover are friends with other people who cover LSU. Look, I want to make this statement too. I really don't give two Rudy poos about that. Look, we're building what we're building, so stay over there. But I know that we all knew, but we all didn't know that it was going to happen this yesterday. I know that we hinted Wednesday that something was going down on Friday, but we're still trying to confirm. I know that we talked about that, but as Thursday went on, I mean, we found out, and Friday morning we got the confirmation that Paul Mainieri was retiring. And while we posted on Facebook and Twitter, you got to give him a lot of credit for what he's done. He's coached a lot of big league guys. Zach Pearson, who's a great friend of mine, who comes on this show regularly, talks so glowingly about Paul. I mean, I remember Zach talking about, him needing Coach Mainieri, and he would drop everything for his players. We're going to need to get Zach on this upcoming week to talk about Coach Mainieri. But he's got a lot of wins, and I really hope that these kids that are on the team go out just and look, people are going to talk about sympathy. People are going to talk about a lot of things trying to get in a regional. Bullshit. I mean, yeah, I get what people are saying because the committee will put them LSU in. The LSU were more than likely going to get in anyway because of the simple fact they need LSU to get in there from a money perspective. If they're going to put Florida in 2 seasons ago, you really think they're not going to put LSU in? Come on, man. Come on. But the people that are talking about this being a sympathy play, the man is retiring after 30-plus years of coaching and a lifelong completion of baseball. This man has been coaching baseball and wanting to coach baseball since he was 14. He's 63, about to be 64, so almost 40 years, 50 years that he's wanted to be a coach. Math was getting me a little bit this morning. But for 50 years, all this man wanted to do was coach baseball. And you got to tip your cap to him. He is, let's make this known, he is one of the best LSU coaches of all time. Like, I don't think we understand that. Like, you could have your Nick Saban, some Rudy Poos might have Les Miles. Ed Orgeron's making his career along with Will Wade. But there's Skip Bertman. There's Paul Mainieri. Dale Brown did not accomplish what Paul Mainieri accomplished. Nobody outside of Skip Bertman, if we're being honest, for LSU has accomplished what Paul Mainieri has accomplished. So, yeah, he wanted to make Skip proud, and we put him on the pedestal of Skip. And a little bit, it might have not been fair to Paul for us to put him on that pedestal. Maybe not. And as a fan, sometimes I get upset. This past Wednesday I got upset, or Tuesday for the postgame show. But it's only in passion that I get upset. But one thing is for certain. This man did not have to come to LSU. This man did not have to come to LSU. I know it's kind of early, but guys, he had the balls to step up and say, I'm coming. You got to give the man credit. So Paul Mainieri from AYS and everybody here from the Ruffino family, we greatly appreciate everything that you've done for LSU. Carlton Cisco says, good morning from West Houston, Blake. Let's chop it up. Yes, sir, my good friend. He says with the coffee, as people that listen to the podcast get mad at me when I slurp. So I'm not going to slurp like my name's Kermit. Grab your coffee. Let's watch some AYS. Ryan Tudo says, yeah, it sure does, Craig. Let's see. Craig says, sad to see that his physical activity caused him to be distracted and disconnected and unable to continue. Explains what we've been questioning. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it certainly does. And look, when you're in that much pain, and even his nerve endings. I mean, guys, so many nerves run down from the back of your neck. He's got serious migraines. Some people. I want to say this very quickly too, because there was a somebody said, and I'm not going to name any names, but that people were trying to convince Mainieri to retire at the beginning of the season. That's number one, that's bullshit. Number two, Mainieri said that he didn't even think about it until a little bit into the season, as the season started, maybe a month or two into it. So either Mainieri's lying, which he's not lying. Did you see the man that did the press conference? That man's not lying. Okay. So be careful with some of the information that you get. Maybe they suggested it to him or they talked about him, asked him if it was going to be his last season, but nobody set Mainieri down at the beginning of the season and said, Coach, hey, Coach, are you going to retire? Guys, they were a top 10 team in the country. That is a lie and a sack of bullshit. Nobody did that. Trust me, nobody did that. And we'll get to who the next coach is going to be, but just understand that's a lie. Don't beat your chest when you have nothing to beat your chest over. Rudy Poos, man. I'm getting worked up today. Maybe it's because subconsciously I got to cut some grass, and my grass is just out of control, and it makes me upset when my grass is out of control, but I can't cut it sometimes because it's so damn wet outside. So damn wet. But we're going to get that grass cut today. Brian Viator says, thanks to Coach Mainieri. Todd says, what about Jeff Willis at Eunice? First off, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know it's at JUCO level, but it's still baseball on his resume is spectacular, says Todd. Absolutely not. Jeff Willis is probably one of the rudiest of pootiest individuals that you will ever meet. I'm not going to call – Zach played there. You know what? And I'm not saying stories from Zach. Zach said a story on this show from Coach Jeff Willis and how crazy that man could be. I've seen that man coach. And I've seen what he's done to his players with my own two eyes. Hell no. Hell no. Hey, man, go win a D1 first. And Todd, this isn't about you, and I'm saying this to you specifically, but I am not a Jeff Willis fan. He can win 1,000 JUCO level national championships, but absolutely not. He's a Rudy Poo, man. If Rudy Poo had a face, it would be Jeff Willis. If Rudy Poo had a face, it would be Jeff Willis. So he's not a good dude. And he doesn't really give two shit. Jeff Willis cares about one person, Jeff Willis. Sam Bacon says, can someone slap the S word out of 247 Sports? All right, we're going to get to that in a minute. Let's get to a couple of these comments and we'll get there. Ryan Trahan says, let's go. We are live. Blake is fired up. Get your popcorn ready. It's going to be good. Yeah, it's going to be good. We're about to get there. Trust me. I want to say this. Let's get to this coaching search right quick because I got a lot I need to say about 247. I got a lot I got to say about 247. Oh, Angie says that she's in Toledo Bend. Nice. I dig it. There are some people that, and I'm not let me say this. I am not discrediting their information or anything like that, but I'm just going to tell you what I've heard, not discrediting anybody on this information. I was told around 5 o'clock that Kevin O'Sullivan, the head coach at Florida, was going to be dining with some people. Let me say this. No decision is final. Okay? No decision is final at this time. From what I hear. Now, I'm not saying Kevin O'Sullivan will not be your next head coach at LSU. That's not what I'm saying. I think that there has, as we've all been noticing and been talking about, Kevin O'Sullivan there's been interest and his name has popped up. I don't know if Kevin O'Sullivan will be the next head coach. I don't know if he will or if he won't. I know that there's some talks going on there. I know that he met with some people last night or for dinner. No decision was made. Kevin O'Sullivan has some things off the field personally that he's working through right now. And quite honestly, it's a shit show. It is and I don't mean that in a negative way, but Kevin O'Sullivan has got some really Rudy Poo stuff going on with him in Florida right now. Him and his wife are going, and if you're divorced, I don't mean this in a wrong way or have been divorced. This one's extremely toxic. Okay. So I know that I am not saying Kevin O'Sullivan is not going to be your head coach. I'm not going to say he will or he won't, But right now, no decision has been made. I can tell you that right now. Now, as this continues to go on, Scott Woodward and company are going to get things going. Schlossenberger, I think is his name, or I forget his name. The guy at TCU. His name always slips me. TCU baseball coach. I forget his name. Jim Schlossnagel. I know that. There goes my camera. There we go. Jim Schlossnagel from TCU. His name has come up multiple times. I know that he said he's not leaving TCU. I know that there's some family things with him that have come up. But him saying that he's going to stay at TCU, wants a lifetime contract, I'm hearing that that's not true. I do think, from me personally, if it were me, you go and you talk to Tony Vitello. I know that a lot of people have called him a womanizer. I know people have called him he's an angry elf. Some people have called him that he's a Rudy Poo. Well, this Rudy Poo wins. Go listen to Skip Bartman at some of them interviews when he was coaching at LSU. I double dog dare you to go listen to some of them interviews. He wasn't a womanizer, but he would call people out. He would say some of the darnest damn things in these press conferences. When I was listening to some Skip stuff after the documentary, I was like, I wonder if there's old press conferences. He was calling people out. Would not have been allowed to say the stuff he said in the early 2000s and mid 90s that he couldn't go on right now. So I do think that there's a list. The coach that I would want the most would be Tony Vitello. That is me. I know that probably Vitello would want to come here. He's a winning guy. He's a young guy. He's a hungry guy. The thing with Scott Woodward, though, he likes to hire people that have won national titles or have come close and competed at the highest level. He got your boy from Boise, Chris Peterson, to go to Washington. He got Jimbo, who's won a national title to Texas A&M. And then, we know about Kim Mulkey. Does he want a coach that's won a national title? There's not a lot of individuals that have won national titles that you could possibly get outside of Kevin O'Sullivan. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. By the way, LSU's not out of a regional yet. The season's not over. And I think that LSU, being a 3 seed, could easily go in and upset some people, especially if these kids want to go out and put Paul Mainieri and finish strong for him. When you take 18-year-old kids and you give them something external to play for, there's no telling what might happen there. So no decision has been made. I am telling you, Nookie says Schlossnagel from TCU. No decision has been made. None. I at least my sources, which we kind of, I'm going to leave it alone because it doesn't matter anymore. We've grown, and I think you guys trust me. No decision has been made because of Kevin O'Sullivan going through some really Rudy Poo stuff. All right, let's get to a couple of these comments, and then I'm about to tee off on 247. I know they followed me on Twitter and all that stuff, and that's good, but we're about to tee off on them, so stay tuned. Gary Donovan, good morning, Gary. I appreciate you for your service. If that is you, I appreciate you for your service. Good morning from Shreveport. Paul Mainieri had a great career. The next coach will have some great tools to work with. That's really true. And you got to give Paul a lot of credit here. Paul said that he wants the next coach to win national championship and have a lot of success. And Skip defended Paul Mainieri when it was rightly due. I mean, look, outside of Tim Corbin, there's not a lot of coaches that won multiple national titles. Look, Dave Van Horn at Arkansas has not won a national title. He has not. So baseball is a different beast. Look, Vandy got beat last night by Ole Miss. They're out. You know what's crazy is that Vandy has never really been successful in the SEC tournament. They haven't. Once they get into the tournament play, sometimes they play Rudy Poo. So a lot of people put a lot of success on Tim Corbin, but Tim Corbin he hadn't had a lot of success. Corey Kaye says patrolling my street beat and watching AYS. Can't beat it. I appreciate that. Drum Tech 890 says that's sports. You can dislike someone because of sports, but you don't dislike the man. That's a very good way to put it. That is a very good way to put it. You can have your arguments, but you don't have to trash the man. Look, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think people realize that, right? So, all right. As I wipe my lips, I can't wait for it anymore. We're 23 minutes into the show. I'm going to get to your comments. I got to get to this. I'm not sure if you guys saw. Now, I posted on my Facebook, Twitter, and wherever we post stuff. 247 Sports came out with this list of teams that are one-hit wonders. They had all these different teams, and I'm not going to really go through that. You can go see it. I'm sure you guys have seen it. On that list was 2019 LSU. I have, for the better part of 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, have talked about the disrespect that LSU has received nationally. I have even gotten questions from people on Blake, what are you even talking about? What are you seeing? But this is kind of the cherry on top of the disrespect that LSU gets from a national perspective. LSU in football is number 2 in titles. Number 2 behind the University of Alabama with 3. They're number 2 in appearances with 4 behind Alabama. So Clemson doesn't have it. Oklahoma doesn't have it. Texas doesn't have it. None of these other teams, Ohio State doesn't have it. All these teams across college football that are the blue bloods, they're the blue bloods of college football. They don't have, in the last 20 years, which really even in 16, they don't have the success of LSU. Nobody outside of Alabama has more national titles. So at what Rudy Poo point do you think that it's okay to say that LSU's a one-hit wonder? Then you got a guy from 247 talking about a recruit that's more than likely going to LSU and saying now that he's not a 5-star. I get that you Rudy Poos don't like Ed Orgeron. I get it. I get that you Rudy Poos don't like LSU for whatever reason because you're Alabama homers. You're Nick Saban homers. But at some point, you guys and these individuals have to be realistic about actually what goes on. 3 national titles in 16 years does not make you a one-hit wonder when other teams inside your conference hasn't won shit. Auburn won. Name another SEC team. I will wait. You have Florida that was in there in the early 2000s or 2009, 2010. What have they done since? They've won the SEC East. But you know what? Urban Meyer's not a one-hit wonder. Florida wasn't a one-hit wonder, even though Urban Meyer, you know what's even crazier to me about this? I was going to use this with J-Boy, so I hope he doesn't see it when we debate this. Is Urban Meyer not a good coach? Because at the end of his tenure at Florida, he was getting his ass kicked. So Ed Orgeron goes 5-5, and he's not a good coach? 51-16 of the last 5 years that he's been a head coach, but he's not a good coach. But you know what? Urban Meyer can go 4-7, but God don't. Ed Orgeron can't. Ed Orgeron can't go 5-5. You know what's also interesting to me about this? Nick Saban won a national title in 2003, and I know that I posted this on our message board. It's not really our message board. It's the comments on Facebook. How Nick Saban, after winning a national title, did absolutely nothing for LSU after he won it. So was 2003 LSU a one-hit wonder? That's interesting because the man never won here again. Just because he's making out with Candy Edwards underneath the bleachers and has to leave because his wife tells him that she's going to leave him and he has to really go to Miami. I want to go to Miami. Bullshit. You didn't want to go to Miami. Skip saved your ass. Now that we all know the ties that Skip Bertman has in Miami and you're making out with somebody underneath the bleachers, again, your skull kicked in by Iowa, but they're not going to put 2003 LSU. Why? Because it's Nick Saban. Well, Blake, Nick Saban's had success after that. What's your point? LSU has. LSU's had the success. Over the last 20 years, they've had the success. Over 16 years, they've been one of the top premier programs in the country. Actually, they're number 2. Ohio State can't say shit. USC can't say shit. Michigan can't say nothing. They're Rudy Poos. But all of this just culminates into when you see something about LSU. Well, Blake, you shouldn't worry about what these other national people are saying about LSU. Say that to recruits. Say that to recruits. You want a kid in Texas, didn't grow up an LSU fan, he sees that, he goes, man, LSU might be on the decline. But you know who that kid's got an offer from? You know who that 5-star blue chip, Johnny 5-star, as Bill King calls him, you know who he's got an offer from? Alabama. So why aren't you going to say something to Nick Saban? Well, Blake, Nick Saban had the success. Well, so did LSU. It's a joke with 3 different coaches. So was it a coach or was it an institution? Everybody has success. Ryan Thibodeau brings us up 9-4. They were at technically 8. No, I think weren't they 8-5? Am I going wrong there? They weren't successful. They weren't successful. And we're supposed to sit here and think that they're not going after LSU for what? And what's going to happen here is this, and you guys don't see this. This is what people don't see. As soon as I get off this show, I'm going to have a message. Blake, that wasn't. These media elitists I'm going to go check my Twitter right now. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 messages. I have no idea what they are, and I'm not going to click on them. But as soon as I get off, this is what you guys don't see. Blake, you shouldn't have said that. That targets people from 2-4. Bullshit. Then don't post it. I just don't fully understand what they are trying to do. But here's what they'll do, and how can I say this without sounding really horrible? They will, but when LSU is having success, they will jump on that bandwagon. You cannot put 2019 LSU on that list. You can't. Because on this little list, the only thing that separates LSU from all of them, they won a national title. They won a national title. I think maybe Auburn did in 2010. Yeah. So there is 2. But Auburn just hasn't had the success of LSU. The funny thing is, and I'm going to ask these people this if I ever get them on the show, is do you think Urban Meyer's a good coach? And if you think Urban Meyer's a good coach, then how do you justify him getting his teeth kicked in? His teeth kicked in against when he was at Florida. Now, he had success at Ohio State early, and then he fizzled out like he always does. All right, let's get to a couple of these comments. Jeremy says, hashtag Ask Blake, Arkansas has never won an SEC tourney at that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, the crazy thing about that is that people think that Dave Van Horn has had more success than Paul Mainieri, which isn't true. Lance Richard, Lance. This says, tough loss for softball last night. Yeah, I saw that. I like Beth Torina, but man, they lose some close games. Nookie, what's up, Nookie? He says, how easily we forget Coach Paul Mainieri beating Oregon State twice in 2017. Yeah, the team of destiny, right? Like the team of destiny. It was crazy. Ryan Thibodeau says all that hashtag Rudy Poo-ness and bulletin board material. Yeah, it is bulletin board material and what they say about LSU, but I just don't. Somebody's going to have to explain to me the national media bias. And my guys, please tell me, give me Put yes or no. Do you think that I'm going crazy that LSU is constantly being attacked? I mean, I can't make this up. I mean, I know that I could probably try to find a way to do it, but I don't know. Just let me know in the comments. Do you think that LSU, from a national perspective, is being attacked? Because I sure as shit do. Nick Saban did nothing at LSU after. He did nothing. So when they make LSU a one-hit wonder after Saban, get out of here with that. Kenny says there's only one one-hit wonder in college football, and that's 1976 Pitt Panthers. I think you could put that Auburn team in there. I mean, because they were losing season after losing season, but then all of a sudden they turned it around. And then you know what's even crazy about? You know what's crazy about one-hit wonders? What is a one-hit wonder? You know, a one-hit wonder is when you have a song and you never hear from the artist again. Auburn's not even a one-hit wonder because a couple of seasons will go by and then they made it to another national title. How is that a one-hit wonder? Even from an Auburn perspective, do we understand how tough it is to get to a national title? Do we understand how hard it is? Guys, there's only, 24 teams that have gotten to the playoffs? Was it 9 teams or no, 4 or 5 teams that have gotten to a national title? 6 teams that have, at least in this playoff format. Let me emphasize. In this playoff format, there's only 6 teams that's gotten to a national title, and we're supposed to sit here and say that one of those teams just isn't good? Guys, Georgia hasn't won a national title since the 80s. They haven't won a national title since the 80s, but LSU's the one-hit wonder. Get out of here with that. I'm sure 247 is going to unfollow me on Twitter. I don't give 2 shits. Shane says Clemson and Oklahoma also playing a weak-ass conference. That's true. Let's be honest. They also don't play in the same damn conference, in the same division as Alabama, which gives them an automatic leg up. I agree with that. And look, the SEC West is the toughest division. It is the toughest division in the toughest conference. By the way, in 2019, LSU won that. It's just unreal. Unreal the amount of disrespect that they get nationally. I don't, and what's funny to me is that when see what's going to happen is that during these camps, a couple of LSU commits. Let me say this very quickly. I'm going to get back to you, Jacob. This is what's going to happen. So get ready for this. There's going to be football camps. Okay, LSU's going to hold a football camp. Alabama's going to hold football camps. All these teams are going to hold football camps. I guarantee you're going to see some LSU kids on 247 start to fall. Now, let me say this. That's not on Shea Embody or Billy or Shea Dixon or Billy Embody or Sonny Ship. That's not on those guys. At least that's what they've told me. They don't make those rankings. I'm cool with that. That's not on them. But when you start having recruits fall, why is that? Is it because they're committed? Like, you can't justify these kids that are committed when they fall in the rankings. You cannot justify it. Because a lot of those kids that fell last year, you hadn't seen play. Josh Pate, I think, said that 247, or somebody was telling me that 247 never went and saw kids last season, like face-to-face, eye-to-eye. So you're supposed to tell me that you have not laid eyes on individuals, but you're putting a ranking on them. Again, not on Shea, not on Billy, not on Sonny, because I know you guys are going to run back to Sonny and them and Billy and Shea and say, Blake Ruffino trashed you. I'm not trashing them. I'm trashing 247 as a whole for putting out that shitty column and that shitty post because, let's be honest, Shannon Terry's coming. Jacob Cole says there was a study done on Twitter a while back that showed that LSU content gets the most interactions and impressions by far. I want to believe that 247 included LSU in their post. That was clickbait. I'm sure they didn't, but I want to believe it. And it's probably so. Yeah, and I saw that too. And you know why that is, right? You know why that is. Majority of that is because LSU fans that will, when someone says something good about you, they'll be like, yay, cool, yay, yay. But when someone starts trashing you, that's when the interaction happens. That's when you got people like me with 171 people in this son of a bitch. When you got me in here getting all worked up and all upset because they're out here trashing LSU on a beautiful Saturday morning when daddy's got to go cut grass. Cedric says, hey, I'd like to wish my wife a happy 16th anniversary. Happy anniversary, Cedric. Happy anniversary, my friend. That's awesome. That's awesome. Brandon Reese says people just want to be petty. Well, I think it's more than being petty. I think it's way more than just being petty. I think it's I don't know what I don't know what it is. I have no clue what it is and what's necessarily going on there. It's uncanny if we're being honest. It's uncanny the amount of stuff that they're doing. Now 247 Georgia is coming out with this Eric Gilbert stuff about him. And look, like we said, so I'm going to say this. I believe that Eric Gilbert's going to play next season. I'm going to give the lean to LSU from what LSU tells me. Let me tell you how this gets nationally. Follow me very quickly. Let's talk about Eric Gilbert. Last Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, I said Eric Gilbert news is coming up. Some local LSU people started talking about it. Said it Monday. So Tuesday, all these LSU people start talking about it. Now Georgia's talking about it. Where do you think that came from? Eric Gilbert is back in the news. Where do you think it came from? Not this past Monday, but the Monday before, we started talking about it. We started talking about it. Why is it now coming up? Oh, he's going to Georgia. Georgia said that Mason Smith was going there. I don't believe that shit. He's been in Eric Gilbert has been in Baton Rouge and taken online classes to qualify for LSU. So now he's all of a sudden going to Georgia. Now I'm going to say this. Eric Gilbert has shown that he's not always in his thinking clearly. That's a good way to put it. Thinking clearly. So there's no telling what is going to happen with Eric Gilbert. I've been told, like I said, the last 2 weeks that LSU is talking with Eric Gilbert every single day. And then now it's being reported. Just throwing that out there that we've said it for the last 2 weeks, and now it's getting to the national media outlet. But, what's funny about that is only 2 of them have contacted me. And you know what they've said when they contacted me? One of them said, Blakey's going to Georgia. I've got it confirmed. Then another guy said, hey, I just talked to the Eric Gilbert camp. They're keeping their options open. Unreal. You know who wants that scoop, though? 247. Well, you can't have it. Jacob Cole says the greatest ever. There's no change in my mind on this. If you're talking about 2019 LSU, yeah, they were the best ever. Ryan Miller says 2001 Hurricanes. Ryan, with all due respect, that 2001 Hurricanes team got beat in the national title. So how can that team be the greatest when they've lost? How can that team be the greatest when they scored 17 points against Boston College? They scored 17 points against Boston College. They couldn't score with LSU. Let's say that great defense held LSU to 30 points. They can't score 30 points. They lost. A team that lost can't be the best ever. Teams that go undefeated are all guys, they lost. 2001, Warren Sapp was on the show and said that he thinks it's the greatest team. I said, Warren, but they lost. He goes, oh, well, I don't know what to say about that. Again, of course you can't. They lost. Travis Shaw, this is what we need to get to. It's a lengthy comment, but let's say this. Saban was 7-5 in 2004, year after the first natty at LSU. Saban also was 9-3 in 2010, year after winning a national title at Alabama. Orgeron would have been 7-5 or 8-4 in 2020 if he would have played the regular schedule with those 2 cupcakes. I agree with that. Year after year, year after first natty at LSU, bottom line is it takes time to build a program that can compete for a championship year in and year out. Thank you, Travis Shaw. That is the truth. That is very truthful. Here's another thing. LSU would not have had 10 SEC games. They would have had 8. They would have had 8. That team still clicked. Speaking of my good friend Ryan Mayer, they still clipped off that Florida team, the SEC East champion. They played the SEC East is so good. No, they are not. They benefit for being in the best conference. Now they got some good teams. They're not the best division. Georgia and Florida got to actually start winning some shit for them to be good. And it's funny how people forget about that miscue from not Dan Mullen, well, from Dan Mullen too, but from Kirby Smart, when Kirby Smart tried that fake punt and got stopped, and then he winds up getting his ass beat. Like, are we just supposed to we're just supposed to forget about that? We're supposed to forget about Kirby Smart? Unreal. All right, guys. Listen, betonline.ag. Go there for all your mobile device or mobile sports gambling. I need to be doing that multiple times, but I get so worked up, or during the Saturday show, I get so worked up. I don't know. Scott says all you have to do is look at how many recruits drop once they commit to LSU and how many Bama recruits go up on 247 every year. Yeah, it's like clockwork. It's like clockwork. The simple fact that kids commit to LSU and drop is funny to me. It's fun. Well, and see, they're in a conundrum right now with one of the kids that's committed to LSU, Aaron Anderson, right? Aaron Anderson is committed to LSU, the wide receiver from Carr. Alabama just offered, not too long ago, they offered Aaron Anderson. So is Aaron Anderson not good? Alabama wants him. I guess he's just not good anymore now, right? Matthew Mitchell says, look, 2009 was the greatest show on turf. People are jealous and are trying to do what they can. Yeah, they are. They are. And the the funny truth is that I would assume that there is a lot of people that subscribe to 247. I would also think that there's a lot of people that subscribe to 247 for LSU news. Again, this is not about Shay and Billy. But why do we subscribe to somewhere that is going to trash LSU? Why? I'm just asking. I'm asking a serious question. The reason that we're able to have podcasts and we're able to do stuff, look, I am my own boss. So the gloves are off. They're always off with me. I don't have to hold punches. What do I got to hold a punch for? What, they going to get mad? These Rudy Poo's going to get mad at me? These Rudy Poo's, these 5'7", 152-pound guys going to get mad at me? This little sports reporter? Screw you, bro. You won't, like that old girl said on Dr. Phil that time, catch me outside. How about that? Lester Aber says, because they like to argue. Probably. Lester, I like that. I like that. Lester, what kind of fish is that? Is that, let's see. That ain't a shark. Lester, what kind of fish is that? I can't tell. Arlen, I saw you comment earlier. Arlen Blackwell. Let me try to find it. Oh, you're talking about them unfollowing me. Unfollowing someone on Twitter because they called you out is equivalent to my generation's kid that would take his ball and go home because he didn't like what you said. Very much so. Lester Aber says that's a gar, 130 pounds. Jesus Christ. It's a big old gar. Lester says the reason why is because any news is news for fans that live outside Baton Rouge area. That's true. Kenny says, Walker Howard will drop to a 4-star before it's all said and done. If Walker Howard falls to a 4-star, I'm going to lose my shit. Kid's not a 4-star. Unless some crazy stuff happens, the kid's not a 4-star athlete. William says, you got you a Marlin. No, he says it's a Gar. Ryan Thibodeau says, hashtag ask Blake, all those stars don't mean a Rudy Poo. Look at Jet. Well, look, here's the truth. I get what you're saying, but majority of 5-stars do hit sometimes, but they have gotten a lot worse. I would agree with you here. They have gotten a lot worse over the last couple of years, meaning the top 10 recruits from the 2017 class, the top 10 guys on 247 didn't even get drafted in the first round. That is a problem. That is a problem. All right, guys, you know what? We've been doing it for about 48 minutes. It was a great morning show in addition. Normally, it's really chill, but there's a lot to talk about. I'm gonna have to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to stay up with the times. I can't be missing Thursdays. I'm just gonna have to do it. Ryan says, does not matter what star rank you are. No, it doesn't, but they're doing it for money. And then we'll subscribe to it. And like Rudy Poos, we'll subscribe to it and then not do anything about it when they trash LSU or Florida. Florida's another thing, Ryan. They do it to Florida all the time. Last one. Matthew Mitchell says, also have to remember we lost 20 to 25 players after 2009. How do you replace that? That's a good point. All right, guys, we will see you again Monday. Daddy's got to go cut some grass. Y'all have a good day. Peace out, guys.